Welcome to TBN Israel, the podcast, and we are here to analyze the options that Israel has at this moment in the Gaza Strip. One option is to continue with the full conquest of Gaza City, and the second option, which is more according to Hamas and the international mediators on the table, which is a deal to release the Israeli hostages. What will it be, Mati? We're going to talk about this today, but also just in this week, Hamas was bold enough to try and carry out a wide-scale attack using 20 terrorists that popped out of an underground terror facility, a tunnel near an IDF post, and attempted to murder Israelis and also to take soldiers as hostages. But they were not successful in doing that, thank God, and our troops were able to neutralize the threat and the terrorist.
Yeah, and this shows everyone who's watching this, if there was a question of the necessity to continue fighting in the Gaza Strip, and if there was a debate over whether or not there's a need to move in force, in armored vehicles, in protective facilities and maneuvers, this is the answer. Hamas still is able to carry out an attack with 20 gunmen. By the videos I've seen, they seem to be well-equipped and well-trained, or relatively well-trained. And thankfully, the IDF was very vigilant and on top of things and was able to eliminate most of them and then apprehend the rest, which is, by the way, not what the obvious outcome would have been. When you're a static defender, things can go south very, very fast. Yeah. So this really answers the question and sets the stage for this whole conversation of where is Gaza going? What is happening next with the Gaza Strip? It has been, as far as global news is considered, the biggest conflict of our, of our day and age.
The biggest conflict since World War II, according to global news. It
exactly.
Gets more coverage than the Russia-Ukraine conflict, more coverage than any conflict around the world combined, and also more diplomatic attention than anything that's going around the world.
Yeah, and so we're not going to talk about the hypocrisy yet, but we're going to talk about the fact that the IDF is on this very, very massive and substantial, let's call it maneuver in the Gaza Strip. Yeah. So just to say this is in the backdrop of all of this is the incredible amount of pressure to bring a deal that has to do with the hostages and bringing back all of them back to Israel, ending the war with Hamas, and Israel not just threatening, Israel carrying out actions going towards a full-on military takeover of every last Hamas stronghold in the Gaza Strip. And we'll get into that in a bit, which includes a massive recruitment of IDF reservists, a massive sort of buildup of forces throughout the army leading towards that attack. This isn't just like, saber rattling. This is happening as we speak.
Saber rattling?
It's you bang your sword against your shield.
Ah, okay. It's not just making noise, basically.
It's not just making noise. It's really taking action.
Okay.
So the IDF is getting ready for that. But before we start...
Yeah, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tomer, we got you before you reminded us. Please help us reach more people around the world with what is happening in Israel. This little click really helps us. And by the way, the IDF just launched Operation Gideon's Chariots 2. Okay? This is the next level operation with, I think, the worst name that we had in this war so far, the hardest to pronounce compared to Iron Shield.
It's almost like a low-budget summer film.
Yeah, Americans, they know how to make amazing names like Midnight Hammer or Hammer Drop. I forgot the name of it.
It was called Midnight Hammer.
Against
I don't know that that's a better name, I have to tell you.
Anyway, it involves, let's break it down, okay? It involves the recruitment of additional 60,000 IDF reserves. So maybe Mati and myself will be called up again. So far, that's not the case.
No, I have been.
You have been?
Yeah, I have been. I'm going back later this fall.
So yes.
And it might be even earlier than that if this really...
if this takes shape fast. And the plan is basically to encircle Gaza City, which is already taking place now. The IDF began softening airstrikes using artillery and the Air Force against Hamas positions in areas surrounding the Gaza Strip. Okay? It had begun to advance plans to relocate the civilian population, and I'm talking about 850,000 civilians from Gaza City and the area surrounding it into humanitarian zones that the IDF is also building for the Palestinians, including tents, including field hospitals, including new distribution centers for humanitarian aid, for food. And then, after the civilians are out of Gaza City, which should take around 2 weeks. This is according to the estimates. The IDF will begin a ground maneuver into Gaza City with the objective of destroying Hamas.
What do you mean will begin, Yair? Now you have everyone confused.
What do you mean?
We've already been on a ground operation in the Gaza Strip. I think we need to explain what's changing between what has been and what will come. I think that's really the key point here.
Very important.
Which is the fact that people in their mind, they might look at all of this as one continuous flow. Since, let's call it late October 2023, when the IDF first moves into the Gaza Strip, all the way till now. That's not at all the case.
No.
It was peaks and sort of ebbs of coming in and out of like a massive strike and a much smaller operation. From full-on taking over land and maneuvering, fighting, engaging, and sort of, filtering out the Hamas resistance to a much more defensive and controlling operation.
We can give an example, okay? Guys, do you remember All Eyes on Rafah? You remember this campaign that took place before the IDF took control of the southernmost Palestinian city in the Gaza Strip called Rafah. In this city, the IDF did what it is doing now, which is evacuating close to 1 million Palestinians outside of that area and then taking control of that city and maintaining that control and then bringing the Palestinian people back to the city while monitoring that Hamas terrorists are not amongst these people. So we did it before. So the plan is to do it again in Gaza City.
No, I need to explain something here.
There is something in the middle. When they fighting those terrorists that's staying, and Hamas have a foothold in those cities, a huge foothold.
Yeah. But I want to explain something here. Because if you're listening to this podcast and you've never heard or tracked the news when it has to do with the Gaza Strip, you'd immediately say, well, why is IDF evacuating civilian population? And we need to explain there's two things that are happening here that are very abnormal in global warfare. And the first one is that the Gazan population still exists inside the Gaza Strip. This is a super important point.
Exactly.
In every other conflict, period. In every other conflict, there is no but. In every other conflict, the civilian population is moved out to a less dangerous zone. They're usually put in temporary refugee camps or moved to a neighboring country or a neighboring region to be outside of harm's way, so whatever army is fighting against each other can fight. The Hamas organization, by the way, with the, not really help, but let's call it with the fact that the neighboring Arab countries refuse to accept any of them, are exacerbating, what is the word?
Right.
Making worse.
Worsening?
What is the expression? Exacerbating? We'll just say making worse for now. I'll look it up to make sure I'm not saying something wrong. Anyway, they're making worse the humanitarian crisis and the toll on human life. Really important point to make.
Yeah.
In every conflict in the world, think Nagorno-Karabakh in recent years, think everything happening in Africa. The automatic thing to do
Even
is...
Syria, the refugees moved to Turkey.
Millions, in the millions. In any region, any war, any conflict, even internal, you say, clearly, the civilian population doesn't want to fight against an army and they don't want to be in harm's way. They uproot, they say, we'll be back soon. They put a sign on the door and they move out. In this conflict, which is absolutely unique in global conflicts, Hamas won't allow them to move, and I'll say one more thing on that, and the neighboring countries refuse to allow them to move. Here's the thing with Hamas. In every ceasefire that has happened up till now, because we said this comes and goes, it's a high intensity conflict, and then it's more maintenance. In every one of these phases, the Hamas terrorist organization forces the civilian population back into areas of conflict. They're not allowing them to even move out of harm's way. They're forcing them back. And in fact, in some of the negotiations that took place with Israel, they insisted, including in one of the last rounds, they insisted on moving back 1 million people into harm's way, into an area that just saw some of the heaviest fighting. So it has munitions that didn't explode. It has mines in the ground. It has IEDs that Hamas planted, and everything is destroyed because it was a war zone between Hamas terrorists and the IDF. They're forcing the population to stay. So it's very important to frame the conversation. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Civilians are not supposed to be in a war zone. Hamas doesn't allow them to leave, and the international Arab community first, and then UN aid organizations play along with that desire and prevent them from leaving the Gaza Strip.
Exactly.
This doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah. So what the IDF is doing now is creating safe zones for the population and also safe corridors for the Palestinian population to move from the central areas that Hamas wants them to remain in the central areas of Gaza City, Deir el-Balach, Nusirat, Jabalia, all of these places, and make sure that Hamas will not launch attacks against these corridors because they do. And I've seen it also. Hamas is firing rockets, RPGs, AK-47 bullets at the Palestinian people, trying to scare them from leaving their homes and then creating a much more complicated fighting zone for the IDF to engage the terrorists, because you cannot see who's a terrorist and who's a civilian. Also, Hamas is fighting us in flip-flops and in trainings or jeans and civilian clothing in purpose, because they want us to not be able to differentiate between a terrorist and between a civilian.
Okay, and let me give words to what you're saying. That's called a gross violation of international law and laws of warfare. Right. And Hamas does this consistently, by the way. People, by the way, the entire terminology, I think we're going to have to do like a big expose on this. The entire terminology that has to do with the Gaza conflict is detached from the verbiage used to describe warfare. It isn't, because everyone tries to talk about combatants, terrorists, and civilians. That wording doesn't exist in other wars. The term is, there's combatants and there's non-combatants. And the distance between them is intentionally small, because if you're Yair and 1 minute you're just civilian, the next minute you pick up a bunch of boxes full of ammunition and run and give them to the terrorists, what are you now? You're combatant. Yeah. You're combatant. In the Ukrainian war, by the way, this is important to note, every person that was involved in the conflict puts on a yellow band on their arm. You know why? Because international law requires that any combatant identifies himself as a combatant. Hamas does the opposite. They hide within the civilian population, forcing the IDF to have to deal with civilians that are one moment innocent civilians, quote unquote, which is a very problematic term with a population that is...
Especially in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, overwhelmingly supportive and cooperative with the Hamas organization. That's one thing. And the second part is the transition is almost immediate. One moment I'm an innocent civilian, and the second moment I'm carrying an RPG and giving it to the terrorists or firing it myself. Exactly. And the third moment I'm reported as a civilian that was killed when in fact I was the terrorist just a second before.
Or a journalist. They like to also mix the journalism with their terrorists.
They wear many hats. They must have a lot of sun in Gaza. They wear many hats. I want to just say one more point. We're going to get to this in depth later on. The battle over the truth when it comes to the Gaza Strip. I want anyone who's lasted this long in the broadcast and is planning to leave, I'm just going to say this. Look up this question. How many civilians have died in Gaza from natural causes since this war started? You will be surprised by the fact that it's none. Everyone who passes away in the Gaza Strip is always reported as killed by the IDF. Are you familiar with it? Didn't you know this?
No, I didn't know that.
It's unbelievable. The numbers are crazy. Sorry.
Well, if we're talking about the truth, guys, this is a good option to share that we at TBN Israel launched a campaign to stand with Israel. Okay? So if you want to be part of this campaign, help us create more content, share, and know what's happening in Israel, go to www.tbn.org/standwithisrael. Okay, so this is a way to help us create more content. Hopefully, we're going to go to Syria to show you what's happening there. And that's what this support gives us the ability to do.
The truth is so important. We just saw the UN reporting or missing reports of 6,000 aid trucks.
Oh, yeah.
That was hilarious.
Into the Gaza Strip.
Do you know why they had to do that?
They wrote
because they have no control of where the food went through these trucks.
It's a numbers game. The UN was trying to make a claim. Tomo, this is a perfect example. I'll explain this. The UN reported a number. It was something like 3,400 and something.
20 something.
Let's say it was 3,500 trucks between May and now.
6,000.
The number was 6,000 something.
The number was 9,420 something.
Do you know why? Do you know why they did that though? It's not an arbitrary lie. It's an intentional lie. And the reason for the lie is twofold. One, there's the sort of the end of the story where they admit to the fact that everything that they bring into the Gaza Strip is handed over. I don't think stolen is even the right word. Handed over to Hamas terrorists. But there's another part where they're making a claim, and they did this week repeatedly over the stage of the UN, that Israel is starving the people of Gaza. And starvation is not actually a technical term. You need to prove caloric deficit, as in there isn't enough food that's brought in on a regular basis over an amount of time, and that's when people start losing weight, and then you're in a diet, essentially.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. The IDF has numbers that show that more than double the amount of calories that were needed to sustain the entire population has been brought in since the beginning of the war up till now. As in, if you need to stay healthy or not to lose weight, X amount of calories, give or take double that. It was close to 4,000 calories per person per day. Give or take double that amount was brought in every day of the war on average. And in reality, what that means is that that's the explanation behind the overweight Hamas terrorists that we see in their videos in Hamas tunnels. Look,
getting fatter.
Yeah, they're getting fat in the tunnels. And so they, to force their point of, look, there isn't enough food here, they literally delete 2/3 of the trucks that enter the Gaza Strip with food to make a point of, this is why people are starving in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, and then the IDF came and said, listen, but we
have the manifest.
We allowed the entry to 9,000 trucks to come in. Where's the extra 6,000? You are just completely, blatantly lying.
Last night, stuff getting changed. The operation in the Gaza Strip by the IDF didn't start yet, but we already see lately a big movement by the army and the IDF starting to attack actually Jabalia and Zaytun and Sabra and all the southern neighborhoods.
Surrounding Gaza City.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the IDF is moving its forces, moving the tanks, moving the artillery to closer positions and started softening up operations, which means basically carrying out airstrikes on buildings that are used by Hamas terrorists and control major routes that have the ability to fire rockets, places that we know that are used by Hamas scouters, meaning 13-year-olds that go on top of buildings and make sure that, and let's know the terrorists where the soldiers are moving to and our positions. This is guerrilla warfare, and also underground tunnel routes, and of course, the Air Force, including drones, including Air Force aircraft, collecting intelligence and information.
Let's talk about the numbers for a second. So the numbers don't really tell the full story. The full story is this. To really take over the let's call it the last stronghold of Hamas, they have several brigades left that are sort of up. They're semi-operational. Yeah. The IDF starts rotating in and out forces. So what they do is, and this is why the news can be very confusing sometimes, the report is, and I know several of these orders have gone out, that we're recruiting about 100,000 soldiers. So from whatever we had now to whatever we're going to have the next day, it's about 100,000 plus. Most of those soldiers, by the way, myself included, my unit included, aren't being recruited to Gaza. They're being recruited to other arenas of war.
Judea and
Samaria, northern border, Lebanon, Syria, etc.
Yeah, so that the main army will go into Gaza.
Exactly. So the regular army, which is our conscripted soldiers,
18 to 21 year old.
And these again, so these are now the crack units of the Israeli army, battle-hardened soldiers that have seen years of war at this point in their military.
That's crazy.
Which is amazing.
All their military service, except for boot camp, was either inside Gaza
or inside an enemy country.
Syria, it's unheard of.
It's something we've never seen before. So we're rotating out the units. Units are being called in to release the army. Then the army goes, it trains, it preps, it builds up the forces, it sends them on a vacation. Then everyone comes in fresh. So it's not when you see the headline, it says 100,000 people recruited, and then 4 weeks go by, you're like, well, why isn't this started in the Gaza Strip yet? There's a whole build-up to that includes recruiting the units, training the units, releasing other units. Then we have an interim period, which is the Jewish high holidays taking place in late September this year, where there's a need to reinforce Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria against
terror.
Let's call it an attempt at grassroots terrorism, which happens every year, that requires a lot of foot soldiers on the ground. Then we go to taking over Gaza. So it's not a bluff. I just need to explain to people how long it takes.
You need to move the units, the pieces from the north to Gaza, get them prepared, change the gear, because the tanks that are fighting in Gaza are differently equipped from the tanks that are fighting in Syria, in Lebanon.
So to give an example, me and you were just in northern Samaria last week,
Yeah.
When was that? We were just in Northern Samaria on a really interesting item. I'm not going to tell people what it is. Last week,
Stay tuned at TBN Israel. Make sure to like,
coming
share,
soon to our
and
YouTube channel.
subscribe.
Coming soon to our YouTube channel. And we were up there filming, and then there was an IDF unit there. So I said, "Hey, young guys, where are you guys from? So and so unit." I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And they said, "Well, we just came out of Gaza after being there for almost 2 years."
Yeah.
They did almost their entire service in there. And what's interesting is the units that were there between just before they came and all the way to the beginning of the war were all reservists. Yeah. So that's how it rotates. The reservists are back. They relieve the regulars. The regulars go train. Then they go back into combat. So and people need to understand this. This isn't a bluff, and we're not going through the motions. The IDF is going through everything that is necessary to wage a continuous, prolonged, and hard war inside the Gaza Strip all the way through the winter. This isn't something short. And to do that, all the steps needed have been carried out.
Half a year at least.
Yeah. And I'd say one more thing, and I think a lot of people are looking at this, including Iran and Hamas have said this, the IDF and the Israeli government are bluffing. Look, our government, this last week, changed the government budget to accommodate for the expenses of the upcoming war in Gaza. That's how much work has gone into this. Yeah. They adjusted the national budget to accommodate, to release money from other government offices, to allow the spend that's going to happen with the humanitarian push for the Gaza Strip while things are being built up, and for the expense of building up the army towards that. So the country's really gearing towards this extended operation.
Yeah, it will take some 6 months of active fighting once the maneuver starts.
That was the estimate, yeah. So 4 to 5 months of net fighting, yeah.
And
so we are in a turning point.
Yeah, exactly. So at this moment, Hamas is feeling the pressure, Mati.
That's what Bibi said.
And we are, not just Hamas, also other Palestinian factions, including the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and others, are pressuring Hamas, and they just did that in Egypt, in Cairo, to accept a deal. So there are talks now about a return to the negotiations.
Can I ask you? I'll ask you an obvious question. Do the Egyptians like Hamas?
No.
Okay. Do the Jordanians like Hamas?
No.
Do they fear them?
Yes.
And I think people need to understand that part.
Exactly. Yeah, they fear Hamas. They fear the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt already suffered a coup by the Muslim Brotherhood that took control of the country, and then reversed that with a military...
With a second military coup.
Yeah, with the second military coup by El-Sisi. So they are very afraid of these guys that are trying to revolutionize all the regimes of the Middle East. Yeah. So they, and I'm talking about the Arab countries and Israel, want to end Hamas severely, and to make a statement that the Palestinian terrorism is not a successful route to take over their countries, Jordan, Egypt, and other countries in the Middle East.
Yeah, so here's what a lot of people in the West miss. Yeah. They ask the question, is Islam dangerous, yes or no? And the answer to that is, which Islam?
Yeah.
That's the answer. It's not a yes or no question. It's a which Islam question. There is a moderate type of it that governs certain countries. Many of them are the ones around us in the neighborhood, or were in the past before the Arab Spring and the latest wave of revolutions. And they know to differentiate and look and say, look, this is what we call radical Islam. Radical Sunni, radical Shia, and there's different subtext to that type of radicalism. They look at that and they say the Muslim Brotherhood is something we fear. It's a destabilizing force that has been working here for a very long time, I think it's around 100 years at this point.
It's very long.
It's a very long time period. And they look at it as a huge threat to their security. It's not just about Israel and whatever their agenda is with that. It's them actively fearing that, that political power and that religious movement, and being opposed to it in a direct manner.
All of the eyes of the world are looking towards the Gaza Strip, towards Hamas, to see how will they get out of this situation that they're in right now. And also terror cells within Egypt, not small cells, big cells within Syria, within Jordan. They are also looking towards the Palestinian terrorists of Hamas to see how the world reacts to their terrorist attacks of October 7th, to their war that they waged against Israel. And if Israel will not defeat this organization, these terrorists, severely and very strong, and send a message to all these terrorists around the world, more will rise up. And everybody understands that in this region, but not in the West.
Yes. So and now we get to the part of what do other countries understand? And we're at a place where we're at a fork in the road. And one route is what we just discussed.
Fork is 3, right?
A fork can also be 2. A medieval fork.
I have only forks with 3 or 4.
A grill fork, 2. The kind you use on your meat. Anyway, we're at a fork in the road. And the fork in the road goes one way, which we just described in detail, which is the military operation, where Israel continues fighting until there is no more Hamas as it exists today. And whatever exists of Hamas and of the Gaza Strip at the end of the process, that's what it is. The other side of that is what everyone else is doing in this region, which is a massive push towards an agreement. And unlike what has existed before, there's massive pressure to end the campaign on Hamas. The Qataris are behind it in one way or another, and the Egyptians, interestingly, have really been putting the foot down on Hamas, threatening them to end the campaign. And these threats,
especially to demilitarize, whatever you say that, take away their weapons, take their weapons.
That's the weirdest
to Egypt. That just happened
idea.
Yeah.
Ever Egypt put on the table. They're saying something like that. We will take your weapon.
Deposit your weapons with us.
For we don't know how much time.
Undetermined amount of time. Yeah. For an undetermined amount of time. So Egypt is really, again, Egypt is the mega power to the west of the Gaza Strip. Egypt is the country that, when the October 7th attack took place, mobilized multiple armored divisions and sent them to the border, not with Israel, to the border with Gaza to prevent the Gazans from entering into Egypt.
They built the biggest wall ever been seen in the Middle East.
Yeah, they were taking lessons from the American government's playbook on how to build a wall. They built a massive wall with fortifications, placed multiple regiments of armored vehicles behind that wall, with a very clear message to the Gazan people and the Hamas government.
You're not passing.
Please don't come. We're not interested in your visits right now.
Yeah.
And they've been persistent in that. They look at this peace as something that has to be solved. They don't want to destabilize Gaza. They don't want Hamas, and more importantly, they want the region to start settling down. That's what they really, really want.
Yeah.
And that includes Qatar, that includes the Houthis in Yemen, the Iranians. It all comes together for them.
Yeah, they are losing money. They are losing money on trade. They are losing money on tourism not coming to Egypt. They need this region to be quiet to start rebuilding, because they have a very severe economic situation internally, and they don't need to deal with more terrorists and other people's problem because they have enough of their own.
But what is the proposal right now that is on the table?
So the numbers, I'll run through them really simply. The big numbers are the following. Ceasefire for 60 days followed by a long-term ceasefire. Israel gets back about half of the living hostages in the first phase. This is the idea, by the way, floated, and
it's been around multiple times.
It's been reported by multiple people in pieces. It's not one cohesive plan, and there's no official document that has all of this together. This is leaks from different governments. So it said 60-day ceasefire followed by a long-term ceasefire. It will be guaranteed by the American government in writing. It will have an exchange where about half of the living hostages, so let's say 10-ish living hostages, are released out of a predetermined and pre-released. You want some water? Predetermined and pre-released list that will be given before the first phase of release will happen, with another 18, is that correct? 18 deceased hostages, or I should say murdered hostages, released by Hamas. And then Israel exchanges with them 130 to 150 lifetime terrorists, so hardened, evil terrorists into Gaza or somewhere else.
Convicted murderers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the big piece here is it's, and sort of Israel and Hamas have been at odds on this topic. It's going to be a one-off agreement that happens in multiple phases. Call it whatever you want.
Sounds very weird, yeah.
Yeah, because Israelis are saying it has to all happen at once, and Hamas is saying absolutely not. So we're calling it a one-off agreement that's happening in multiple
at once, but throughout the period of.
But over a 2-month period,
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so that's the big piece of the agreement that's being floated, and I'd say it seems like it's serious, because this is the first time that the details are being released to the public. Not the big pieces. It's not about will there be a war or will there not. It's about what is really happening and what are the nitty-gritty details.
And there's also a big detail, which is the locations of the IDF forces within Gaza throughout this agreement and afterwards also.
Yeah.
Meaning the control of the border crossing with Egypt, which remains under Israel.
Yeah.
Which means also the forces controlling a perimeter demilitarized zone.
A security parameter.
Security parameter. of 1 kilometers
By the way,
Gaza from the Israeli side of the border.
Yair, is this the first time you've heard of the security parameter?
No,
because it existed also in the past.
Yeah, it existed in the past, but then it moved and became narrow every other year.
We allowed Hamas to wear away at the security parameter.
To the fact that Hamas protests reached the border fence of Israel and were able to fire at the soldiers with a pistol.
To ask the big question here, what's going to be the outcome of a deal like that? We're going to see Hamas on ground after this deal? Because on the first option, there is no Hamas after, with all the dangers to the hostages and the hard time of actually fighting. And as we know, we lost a lot of soldiers along the way. We know that after this hard work, we're going to have...
Well, the question is, who are you asking? I think that's the question. If you're asking Israel and you're asking the Qataris, the Emiratis, Prime Minister Netanyahu, or the Egyptians, the answer is absolutely not. Yeah. If you're asking Hamas, it's a Middle Eastern answer.
Yeah.
Yes, but maybe no.
Yeah, it's kind of like, no, Hamas will not be. We create a technocratic government and we will not be ruling the Gaza Street, but our people will be working there.
Yeah.
So just basically rebranding, kind of like what El Jilani is doing in Syria. I hope you guys who's listening on the podcast liked my impression of a Hamas member. I don't know if it has anything to do with the way they speak.
I found it to be racist and offensive. Yeah.
I must ask, because we see that also with Lebanon now. They're trying to take out Hezbollah out and take the weapon out. Something that is not really working for them.
Who's trying?
The Lebanese government.
The Lebanese government
to take the weapons from.
So they're trying to disarm. They're trying to disarm Hezbollah. Yeah. Look, I mean, this is sort of the road to peace in this region and stability goes from the fact that you disarm the terrorist organizations. Sadly, the terrorist organizations don't operate in a vacuum. They had the Iranians supplying them with billions of dollars worth of equipment over decades. And we saw this firsthand. Tomer and I, we were in Hezbollah tunnels in...
It was crazy, a couple of months
When was that? In the winter. No, it was in the winter.
Yeah, it was in the winter.
It was in the winter. We saw Hezbollah tunnels firsthand. They had brand new equipment in the nylon bags.
Yeah. In the boxes, never used.
Straight from Russia.
Straight from Russia, straight from Iran.
Exactly.
Brand new equipment, as did Hamas, by the way. Hamas also was fully equipped with equipment that was purchased and paid for by others. So again, they're not living alone in a vacuum.
By many international organizations also.
Yeah, but you ask an important question. What's going to be in Gaza in the day after? The Egyptian agenda, the Qatari agenda, they're saying Hamas will not be the governing power and will bring in an international Arab entity that will help govern the Gaza Strip. Why do they say that? Because everyone knows that Hamas can't, because they've shown who they are. They've shown their true colors. At the same time, this international pressure to let's legitimize the Palestinian Authority, suddenly this whatever, it's a different story here, but this broken and corrupt body, let's make them be the ones to solve.
An official, legitimate.
And anyone who lives in this region thinks it's an absurd idea. Anyone who's an anti-Semitic and replacement theology nation or government, the French, the German in certain cases recently, and others.
The
Brits, yeah. So I don't want to make sweeping expressions over nations.
It's not the people.
It's not the people, but the governments, the governments are not favorable towards us.
Exactly.
Anyway, and criticism, by the way, between countries is legitimate and well accepted. But when you're trying to say the solution to all the problems in the Middle East right now is let's give the Palestinians a state, you're saying, have you been reading the news in the last 15 years? What are you even talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so that all together, here's where things are going. There needs to be an international force to operate inside the Gaza Strip that replaces Hamas. Hamas does need to be disarmed of its weapons, and some of them need to be exiled from the Gaza Strip. In reality, one way or another, 5 years from now, there will be people associated with Hamas that will be operating and have some power on the ground in the Gaza Strip. That's a reality we're going to have to contend with. It's inevitable.
You have to contend with that as you have ISIS cells in Syria, in Iraq, and in other places in the Middle East, as you have Taliban and Al-Qaeda members still operating. And also, actually, they want a state in Afghanistan now to be officially recognized by Iran. Did you hear about that, Mati?
Yes.
The Taliban. So it's kind of the same thing. So would the international community grant the Taliban a official state in Afghanistan now, this is what they're trying to do with Hamas in Gaza.
They're trying to reward them for the attack of October 7th.
Exactly.
It's absurd. So let's shift gears a bit. The big war that's happening, aside from the war on the ground, is a war that has to do with information. And that war is one side trying to prop up a narrative that says Israel is intentionally starving people in the Gaza Strip. Hamas are victims one way or another. Let's help the victims. Here's the reality. We talked about this, about the number of trucks and the lies that are being spread. In reality, Israel, together with the U.S., is working very hard and spending a lot of money to bring aid into the Gaza Strip. Let me pull up a number just to give you, I'll pick a random day. This is from
the website?
No. This is from Kogat. So let's say this is Wednesday. Just a random number. On Wednesday, it's Tuesday, sorry. Tuesday, August 19th, 400 trucks go into the Gaza Strip through Kerem Shalom and Zikim crossing. 350 trucks are collected and distributed by the UN, and 185 pallets of aid are airdropped in cooperation with other countries.
That's not even a truck. That's the thing about airdrop.
It's pallets.
It's pallets.
Yeah, it's like 2 truckloads.
Yeah,
I don't know how many.
No, it's less.
It's
no.
Smaller.
It's smaller.
On a truck, you have like
piles of
three
pallets.
Piles. Each pile is being airdropped with a parachute. You've
So
seen the video.
Israel bringing so much aid, 400 trucks. That's a huge amount of food per day.
Yeah.
Getting into the Gaza Strip. By the way, the Spain just airdropped food that was filled with it was overdate, and also the meat that they sent was pig. So the Gazans were mad at Spain.
Okay, so I have an answer for you. It's 26 to 30 pallets if single stacked, or 52 to 60 if double stacked.
It's like
a lot of food.
So it's let's say it's
Right.
an average of 40 per truck. So that's only like 4 trucks worth, or 5 trucks worth of good airdrop. But anyway, the point here is that there's a huge battle over the narrative of what's truly happening. Huge battle. Israel is losing that war. The international community has chosen to go with an alternative reality in which there's intentional starving by the people of Israel, where in reality, the Hamas and UN-related organizations are intentionally preventing aid from getting to the people of Gaza. They're doing that because they don't want Israel to be the one who comes up as the good guy in the story. They're doing that because they want to stop the work of the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
They ask if there's going to be a deal, GHF is out.
Yeah, which is kind of weird that Hamas, weird when you listen about it, when Hamas, that is supposed to control and take care of the Palestinian people, is asking in one of its demands for the deal to remove the most successful humanitarian aid organization that is operating in the Gaza Strip to bring food to the Palestinian people directly. You should wonder what's going on right here. And guys, let me know in the comments, do you think that the GHF is doing good for the Gazan population? And how is it compared to the United Nations? Mati is saying hi to his family.
My kids are in the background there. My youngest just waved and said, no, they're not doing well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have some guests here from around the world. Can you come, ask a question, let us know where you're from?
My kids have had enough of the show, which is understandable.
Oh, they're pretty young. Hello.
Specifically of, hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Thanks for coming. So, where are you from? Introduce yourselves.
We're from Arizona.
Arizona. Cool.
So the weather's an improvement for you.
Yes.
About the same.
It was Barbara and
Mac.
Barbara and Mac, thank you for coming. So appreciate the support. And you said that you've been watching us from basically day one, from October 7.
Pretty close, yes. For 2 years now, and you come out, and we have a late lunch about 2 o'clock in Arizona, and that's when we watch you guys.
Wow.
Well, cool. Well, appreciate it so much. Do you have a question for us?
I do. I'm a ex-military wife. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about your wives. Mm-hmm. I know when you're gone, they miss you terribly.
Yeah, they do.
But besides that, I would like to pray for the hard things for them. Mm-hmm. And for me, when my husband was gone, taking care of the finances was awful.
Yeah.
So what's hard for your wives?
Well, it's the hardest thing, I think, is to not know if you're coming back or not.
Yeah.
That was the constant struggle. So even if you go home for like 48 hours on a break from the fighting, then you don't know when's the next time. Is it going to happen? And usually when you go back to Gaza, there is no like, okay, you're going in for a week and then you're back again. You don't really know because it's all depending on the situation, on your fellow soldiers, if they can come replace you. And she's waking up in the morning and looking at her phone and seeing 3 IDF soldiers were killed in action in the Gaza Strip. And she prays that it won't be me. Mm-hmm. That's the hard part of all this situation. And the second hard part, and this is something I think that we should pray for, is the effect on the children.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's the biggest thing.
Exactly.
Because the adults, especially those who grew up in this country, October 7th was traumatic, not to the degree that it was for the children. We someone who's our age group, we went through 2 intifadas and bombing attacks and gunmen and stabbing attacks and the Gulf War and many years and rounds of military service. For a child, this is all new. The missiles is new. The attacks are new. The sense of vulnerability is new. So they need a ton of prayer, the children specifically. And I'd say something where the state of Israel, I think, and a lot of the reservists specifically, we recognize that a lot of our power and our strength as a society is in the women that are back at home. And the ability of the families to really support the fighting force. We saw it especially in the early months of the war, but also just in the moral boost of, it's not some war that we're fighting off in a different country. This is fighting for our home. And then you feel that, the support, the love from families, but also from like the general civilian population, where there's a huge amount of tailwind of, go fight the war, guys and gals, by the way, also women fight here.
Yeah, it's important to remember that the women also fight in the IDF. Yeah. And my wife was a Hummer tank instructor. So when I went to fight in the Gaza Strip and I was called off, it was just in the early days of this war. Terrorists were still in Israel. So she had 3 kids. The youngest was 4 months old. And she had to barricade the house. She would buy locks and lock all the entries, the exits. She would put hammers and knives in places that she will know in case the terrorists come into our house.
Your wife's a character, though.
Yeah. The coolest thing that she did, by the way, which I'm really proud of, is that she took a flamethrower she took a hairspray and attached it to a lighter and created a flamethrower so that she can have to use it if the terrorists come. But that was like for real. It wasn't just a joke. She was ready to prepare the kids, to protect the kids.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so the kids is very much a thing, and we've said this many times. The biggest issue is the hearts of the children and the young people in this country. And then I'd say there's another one if you want to look at the spiritual element, which is the response to a traumatic event and to like the evil that we've been exposed to. It can go in the beginning. It's a natural sort of like you gather together and you have a sense of togetherness and mission. But then it can go to a place of wanting to like distance yourself from that pain, and by doing so, you run the risk of hardening your heart towards the suffering of other humans, and losing the tenderness that is what makes our society unique. And that's really my long-term prayer for our people, is not to lose that, not to become of a heavy heart or a hard heart that doesn't see sympathy and suffering in other places, but to maintain the sense of innocence and love that we've shown the world repeatedly. And I'd say that recent months have shown that we haven't lost it. We've been engaged in Syria and engaged in other places around the world that have seen conflict, and you see the Israeli public, not just the army, not just the government, wholeheartedly support anything that can be done to aid people, by the way, including kids inside Gaza. The Israeli public it's split in its messaging, and it can almost seem contradicting. We want the war to be ended. We want Hamas to be destroyed. We want our hostages back. We believe violence will be necessary to do that. And at the same time, people will say, we want aid to be going into the Gaza Strip. We're willing to pay for that aid to go into the Gaza Strip.
And we do pay.
Yeah, we do pay. But I'm saying across, not everyone, of course, these are statistics, but a general sense is both a compassion and also a sense of resolve to end the war. Both of them exist at the same time.
Tender warriors.
Yeah. Tender warriors, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask?
Yes, you can ask us.
What would you say is the one thing that you wish the rest of the world understood about Israel and understood about the war? That they just, the rest of the
Maybe we'll let Tomer answer this one.
Yeah.
Tomer's the one who sits from sunrise to sunset on like every news source in the world.
I just feel that it's the first time that I met lies spread so far, and I really wish that in this conflict the truth will come out, because it's been really hard to stand and see the truth by our own eyes daily, how we live here, how this city, Jerusalem, is mixed between Jewish and Arabic, and we grow up in a place that have so many religions, and this place symbol God and the beautiful place that it can be, and to see that and know what's really happening in Israel, and understand that people just think that that's all a lie, that they can't see through that just because of hate and hatred. So what I wish for that war is that people will see the real evil that is here, that trying to take place and destroy the place like that. That's my wish.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for coming.
So, Yair, how do we... Watch your step, yeah.
Yeah.
How do we end this podcast, Yair?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to say to our viewers that whenever you guys are coming to Israel or to Jerusalem, give us a call, comment, email us, let us know that you're in the area and you're welcome to be part of this podcast. Okay? We want you to be involved. This is our whole goal, is to connect between people around the world and Israel, to share the truth of what is happening here. We believe that this is a spiritual war, and we believe that in order to fight a spiritual war, you pray, because God is listening and God is with us, and He proved again and again in this 22 months of war that He's performing amazing biblical level miracles.
Absolutely.
So we still have more miracles to come. We need the hostages back home alive. So let's pray for that. Okay? God can make that happen. It's going to be very, very hard if you think about it from a human mind. But it can make it happen. And then there is another very hard thing that is on my heart lately, is to pray for our enemies. But not to pray for the Houthis to succeed in aiming their rockets at us. Let's pray for them to have a change of heart and start loving the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and hoping for a better future for themselves. And I think that everything is possible when you trust God in this situation.
Yeah, and I'll add like a practical element, which is, in my mind, and I think most of us, I'm not aiming our content to the hateful extremist. They're going to continue, like the song says, haters going to hate. That's not going to change. And the people that already love Israel and care about the truth, they're going to stay that way. There's a lot of people in the middle that I pray that a hunger is put in their heart, and like a curiosity to explore what the truth is. And I say curiosity because you have to really have a deep understanding of what happens to really be able to shape a conversation in this topic. It's not enough just to say Israel is good. Israel is a country as all countries are, and it's a nuanced and complex one. What we have to do is have a holistic worldview in the sense of understanding the biblical significance, the spiritual significance, but also the facts on the ground, to be able to present what's happening here in the right way. And when you're able to do that, one, I think it inspires your faith. Two, it helps people shape their worldview in a healthy way that is not hateful. And the third thing I think is to never lose touch with human compassion.
Exactly.
This isn't just about who's right and who's wrong. This is about, and it always needs to be boiled down to this, biblical justice, in the sense of, it's always a question of, if you care so much about what's happening here, how do you care about the Palestinian kids in the Gaza Strip? And if you care about them, do you care about the Israeli kids that were massacred on October 7th? And if you only care about one of them, I'm less interested in what you have to say about anything. Yeah. If you care about both of them, now we can have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Same goes to the kids in Syria. Same goes to the Kurdish kids. Same goes to any minority in this region or in the world that's been suffering, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely. And Mati, there's also an option for us to share with our viewers that we are raising funds for this podcast and for our videos from different ways. One way is to be a sponsor with us. So we don't sponsor just anybody. We sponsor organizations that have a connection to Israel, that are doing good for this land, if it's via selling products from Israel or supporting organizations that do humanitarian work in the land of Israel. So guys, if you want to be part of our sponsoring team, you can go to israel-ad.com. Again, that's israel-ad.com. Let us know who you are, and maybe we can cooperate in sharing your product, your organization with our viewers. And it's another way that we are receiving funds to keep doing what we're doing. Anything else to add, Tomer, Mati?
No, I think we're good.
That's it?
Good stuff.
Good. So, thank you, Mati, for being with us.
Thank you, Yael.
Thanks for bringing the kids. Thank you guys for joining us from Minnesota.
No, Arizona, sorry. Minnesota is from a TV show. Guys, thank you for standing with us. Thank you for watching TBN Israel. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And we'll see you again next time for another episode of TBN Israel, the podcast. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.